afternoon, everybody. I really hope you're all okay. I'm not going to use the mic today because I'm not using any music. This is our instructor help video with regards to correction and kind of helping you really understand about ways in which you can correct your clients and kind of make that environment a little bit better. So this is obviously for fitness Pilates instructors, but this could be applicable to all classes as well, where you're delivering your live classes. So we always need to make sure that first and foremost, if you are going to do any hands-on correction, that you have permission to actually touch your clients. Now, whether or not you decide to do that at the start of your class and you announce at the start, again, I am hands-on with my correction. If any of you do not want to be touched, that's absolutely fine. Just let me know as and when I'm coming over to you if I need to correct you. Or you might want to say that, while you are doing your setup, then you get everyone to close your eyes, and then you could say to people, I'm going to be correcting you, and if you don't want me to touch you, then please just let me know, and you can just signal by lifting your hand right now with our eyes closed, so I'm aware of who doesn't want to be having hands-on correction. That's another way you could do it. The other way you could do it is actually as you're doing the class. So when you're walking around, you could say to your clients, I just need to correct you. Is it okay just to be hands-on with my correction? And you can do that on a one-to-one kind of basis from there. Hey, Nina, good to have you on board. So that's another way that you could do it. Some instructors categorically just say they are not going to be hands-on with their correction. I know a lot of male instructors who actually, with Pilates, do not be hands-on with their correction at all, because majority of their classes are women, and although those women probably really wouldn't mind being touched by those male instructors, they don't want to put themselves or their clients in any way, shape or form to feel, uncomfortable, so they don't do hands-on correction. So instead, they correct through visual and verbal. So I'm going to talk about visual and verbal correction first, and then I'm going to move on to that tactile correction at the end. You can then pick and choose what's good for you. So first and foremost, with regards to our visual correction, this is all about you giving the blueprint with your own technique, showing your clients what it should look like. So for instance, I've just taught Pilates now, live class at Cambridge Country Club, and they've got a couple of newish members. They've literally only done like one class with me before. And they wanted to kind of watch quite a lot what I was doing. Watch first and then do, and that's fine. I don't mind them kind of getting out of position, having a little look, and then going back into position. So just give you an example of what I was talking about. When I was getting people to come on to all four position, I was getting them to lift their back all the way up, point A, all the way down, point C. Then they were finding their point B. So I was getting them to work through that full range of movement until eventually they found their point B. And then I started giving them a little bit more of a kind of visual cue, but something they could think about. So I said, imagine you've got a hot cup of coffee resting on your back. I want you to keep that hot cup of coffee still, so that when we took that out into our Superman variation and I was doing some little leg rotations, I could cue about that hot cup of coffee that I wanted them to keep their body still and just move the leg from the hip in that position. So when you're doing your visual cues for your clients, think about your positioning. You'll notice that I give a lot of side profiling. This is vital. So especially if you've got a big class, there is 0 point me trying to demo that same move from here. Look, you can't even see what I'm doing. It almost looks like I'm just lifting my arm. And there's no idea of what, you can't see what's going on with my leg. And this is applicable for virtual as well. So hence why, take all of this information and drip feed it across for your virtual classes, because this is really important. For virtual classes, they really need to see you. They need to be able to see your alignment. They need to be able to see what's going on. So from a side profile is really, really key. But then you need to then be able to give as well, that not just that visual, but that verbal correction as well. And the only way you're going to know that is by getting up and walking around and seeing what's going on with regards to your clientele. So this is where instructors need to get this Goldilocks phase of not too much but not too little actual doing of the class. Now, obviously, with regards to virtual, this is different because you can't walk around the group, you can't, unless you're on Zoom, you can't come up and have a little look and see what people are doing. If you're doing it like I do on Facebook, then essentially, for a lot of your clientele, they are going to be doing it with you, and if you stop, then essentially they'll stop as well. Whereas with your live classes, you can get yourself up once you've demoed and you can be walking around. And then that's when your verbal cueing can be coming in because you might see something going on. So for instance, I had one of my other ladies, not one of the beginners, but one of my other ladies in the class, and for one reason or another, and she'd been coming to me for a long time, while we were doing this move, she was starting to try and lift same arm, same leg. So I could then instantly see that that was happening, and I could say openly to everyone, just remember this is opposite arm to leg. So you're lifting possibly your right arm and your left leg will be rotating. You're then lifting your left arm and your right leg will be rotating. You're going in opposition, not same arm, same leg. I wasn't identifying her. I wasn't pulling her out. I wasn't, essentially, making the whole class realize that she was doing it incorrectly. But I was giving that verbal cue on what I could see. And essentially, the only way you're going to be able to do that is if by walking around and looking and seeing what's going on. If everyone's doing everything correct, you don't need to be giving those verbal cues. You could absolutely remind them that what they're doing is great. Great stuff, gang. You look really good, really strong in that position. Opposite arm to leg is lifting, and you are really nice and solid through that torso. So you could give that information as well to your clientele. I think there needs to be kind of this balance. And sometimes with some clients, they might not realise that they're doing something wrong. And that might be where you need to then give that more one-to-one attention. So for instance, when we're laying on our back and we come up into our tabletop, say for instance, you're doing your leg slide, as people get tired, that knee that's supposed to be over the hip is essentially coming in too close. So it's here. So they're not really working as hard. It's not really an effective exercise for them anymore. So a couple of things you could do. Well, you could give a visual and a verbal cue together. So you could say, if you want to actually work on your own correction, we can extend the arms, move them out on a diagonal so the heel of the hands goes towards the knees. As you then bring your knee back, if your knee touches the heel of the hands, you know your legs are coming in too close. So you can be your own little guide as to your technique. So I'm giving a verbal and a visual cue there for them. Otherwise, you could be up and around. And then essentially what you could do is just a very, very easy, slight move back of that knee. So you might be bringing their knee back in line. I don't need to be manhandling them in any way, shape or form. I might just want to identify that knee needs to stay over the hip. So as I'm over that client, I could be like, just remember that that knee needs to be over the hip bone. I don't even have to actually touch them. I could just be more visual so that they can see where I'm at and I'm talking to them in particular. And that could be a great way that you could be correcting your clients if you don't want to be hands-on. If they still didn't get it, you could then maybe just do a slight touch of the knee to bring that back into alignment over the hip. And that might be beneficial. Likewise, think about the placement of your hands where you do correct. So if you are going to be tactile with your correction, so you're going to be hands-on, think about where you correct. So essentially, most people do not want to be touched within their torso. The back is absolutely fine. And I believe as well, the sides of the hips also is an absolutely fine position to correct. So for instance, if someone was in a plank position and their hips were too high, I would just hold either side of their hips and just bring them down gently. Never forcing, but making people aware of what I was going to do. So it just could be simply placing the hands to the side of the hips and just making sure that those hips aren't coming too high. And that would be my correction. Hands onto an arm or onto a leg. The limbs are generally a definite place that you could be hands-on with your correction. I'm also sometimes quite hands-on with regards to neck and head alignment. So if I've got a client, and this happened yesterday, where we were laying down on the floor and we were doing our VW, she was lifting her head up, looking forward. So I just cued her and put my hand to the back of her head, placed my hand on the back of her head, very, very lightly, and just cued her to keep her neck lovely and long. So there was no strain on her neck. And I said to her, just keep that neck lovely and long. There will be absolutely no strain on the neck at all. And then you can really fire up through the back instead. So I think when you think about where you're placing the hands, front torso is a no-no. I would never place hands on anywhere in the front torso. I would never also place hands on the bum. The side of the hips is absolutely fine. And again, use maybe fingertips rather than gripping the hands in any shape or form. Back of the head is absolutely fine. Limbs are fine. But generally, when it comes to, more kind of private areas that we don't want people to touch us on with regards to the chest, with regards to the tummy, with regards to the bum, I would not cue that. That move for the VW as well, if you've got somebody who essentially wasn't engaging those shoulder blades, those scapula, as they pull back, you could also cue to just place 2 fingers in between their shoulder blades. So I'm just going to place my fingers in between your shoulder blades. I want you to squeeze those fingers. And then all of a sudden, then they get that great strong engagement and the effectiveness of the exercise. So that again could be a great way that you could do it. If you don't want to be hands-on, that's totally fine. So for instance, you might use your body as an example. So I often do this when I'm talking about hypermobility in my elbows because I am hypermobile. So I will face the group and I will say, when you're looking at the insides of your elbows, essentially they shouldn't be facing forwards like mine are. I'm hypermobile in my elbows, and if I do my exercise here, I'm essentially just sitting into my joints, putting a lot of strain in that locked joint. So what I want to do is just turn the insides of my elbows to face each other, lightly bend the elbows like we would lightly bend the knees. And that's going to give me a much better exercise. So you could use your own body as a little bit of an example there as well. So you could show them what you don't want and then what you're looking for. And again, that could be really, really helpful for some clients. With regards to correction, I think what we've got to think about overall, some people just can't get a move, and it might not be that they're going to harm themselves or injure themselves. It's just a lot about body awareness. So essentially for them, what I would do is just think, are they going to injure themselves? Are they going to hurt themselves? If the answer is no, and you've given them all the verbal and all the visual and all the kind of hands-on correction you can, you just got to kind of just let them sit with it, and then over time, eventually they will get it. But it's just not hitting them at this time and phase of what's going on. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope that's helped with regards to your correction. I am very much an instructor who wants to be around, walking around, looking, speaking to my group individually and getting feedback from them, asking them, how does that feel? Where can you feel it? How does that stretch feel? Can you feel that? Can you feel that difference? When we're laying on our back and we're doing our stretches through our hamstrings, and I'm getting them to turn their feet, I'm not down here doing it because they can't see me anyway. I'm up and around my group and I'm cueing that, going over them, not even touching them, but just cueing with the hands, that hand position, to turn that foot that way, so they can really see. So I hope that that's helped with regards to your correction, but please let me know if you've got any questions regarding that, because hopefully we can kind of keep these mentoring videos going for you, giving you as much information as I possibly can to help you become the very, very best fitness Pilates instructor that you can possibly be. So thank you for joining me this afternoon, gang. Any questions, let me know. Otherwise, hopefully I'll see you again soon on a live or on a catch up.